Hello, and welcome to Sideways. This week, we're talking about why we find it so hard to ask for help, and how it isn't just ourselves that miss out when we don't do it. There's surprisingly little tomfoolery this week, but we still find time to discuss creating a collection of potato chips, the tea in hotels, farmers markets, and middle-class fruit. Asking for help.
Oh, that's better. I couldn't hear you before very well, but I can hear you better now.
Well, you should listen more carefully.
I'm trying. Do I look a bit ghostly?
Well, no more than usual.
Just that my light seems to be reflecting off of my notes paper and giving me this ethereal glow.
Yeah, the light's certainly reflecting off your spectacles in an eerie manner.
So yeah, good. So I'm in good shape. How about you on a Monday evening after work?
I'm all right. I'm drinking a cup of chai masala.
Oh, very nice too. Very nice too. One of my favourite teas.
Yeah, I know you're partial to a bit of a chai tea.
I am.
Yeah.
That's that ended that conversation. Wasn't much else to go. There wasn't anywhere to go with that, was there?
I thought perhaps you were going to take us through some of your favourite teas.
Not really. No. That's. I'm not really well up on my teas, but certainly a nice chai.
When you used to stay in hotels corporately,
yeah,
in your previous life,
yeah,
did you find that it was almost impossible to ever get a good cup of tea in a hotel?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, you could make your little ones in your room with little tiny little tea bags, but no, you could never get a decent cup. No,
and there were always an uninteresting array of biscuits in the room with the tea tray, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, pretty standard, really. Yeah, with no nice chocolate ones. But yeah, I used to go off down the road, find a nice greasy spoon first thing in the morning for me for a proper cup of tea.
What, and then straight to the pub?
Straight to the pub, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about today?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you then, shall I?
Yeah.
Well, but the heading of my notes is seeking assistance, which is based on one of your ideas, really. But it's actually a very important one for us with addiction issues.
Yeah.
And it sort of reminds me of the old days. Remember before sat nav in your car, where you'd get lost and you'd resist asking for help because you thought, I'm sure I better find it somewhere. And it used to take you ages. And I remember Mum and Dad used to get into a bit of an argument because my dad wouldn't want to ask for directions. He resisted. And then eventually we found it. But I think my mum came up with the idea of every Christmas she used to buy my dad the AA Book of the Road. Do you remember those?
I do, yeah. I do remember
the Automobile Association, and they used to have this big, and they got bigger, the books over the years, and they become massive in the end. You're unfolding those onto your lap and working out your route. It did start to solve that issue, but I didn't think many years later that I'd be having an AA book. Not actually of the road, but and not from the Automobile Association. But anyway, I wanted to have a look at, I think we all have a resistance to asking for help, don't we? And I wanted to explore that really. I know perhaps during lockdown and COVID, perhaps people started to learn. One of the positives that came out of it, I think, that people did start to learn to ask for help a little bit, because you couldn't go out at some points, could you? You'd had to stay indoors, so you needed help with some of your basic tasks. So I think perhaps we did learn to ask for help, or it became more easy, and I think people were more willing as well.
So the thing you want to talk about is the importance of reaching out and asking for help. Is that it?
It is really, yeah. I want to have a look at why it's tricky and then what we do about it, and why it's good. But before we start, there was just a story that came up that I was reading in. Do you ever come across the Metro paper?
Well, yeah, occasionally on the very infrequent times that I might travel into the big city.
Exactly. I always used to pick up a copy of the Metro on the train up into London. But there's you can also get it. The hospital always have a supply, which is
Do they?
as I have to go up there reasonably regularly, I always manage to pick up a copy and have a read through.
So is that one of the upsides of getting so sick you have to go to hospital, that you can get
It
a
is.
free read of the Metro?
Not much of a compensation really for having your eye injected, but you have to read it before you have your injection as well. So you can't read it afterwards. But there was a story appeared in there which sort of made me laugh, but maybe cackle, and it was sort of pub related. So I was going to just relate that to you. It was there's a chap. He was originally inspired. There's a website that's dedicated to Wetherspoons patrons,
Right.
and people go on there and they discuss how many chips they get with their meal at various Wetherspoons pubs, right?
Yeah.
And he decided that what he would do, he would go round, he'd try and cover every Wetherspoons pub, and he would take a chip from each pub and put it in a little pouch, in which he would cover the chip in Vaseline and wax to try and keep it sort of, stop it going mouldy. And he'd label each one, and he'd have it in a display.
It sounds like the sort of thing. This sounds like the sort of thing you do.
Well, do you know what? It was a crazy idea, but I was sort of admiring his tidy and organised work of having them all labelled up nicely and putting them in these laminated pouches so he could keep. But when I looked into that, there's 925 Wetherspoons pubs, so that's not really a hobby for a recovering alcoholic, is it?
No, not really. No. Not even under the guise of collecting chips.
No, not really a collectorship. But if you do go onto this particular website, you can find out that if you go to the Spinning Mule in Bolton, you get around about 38 chips with your meal. So there's useful information on there. You know,
is that the top the top location for quantity of chips?
It is. That's the one that came out. Yeah, top of the league.
Yeah. Right, okay. So
it's not often that Bolton are top of the league, but they are in that particular one.
Yeah, perhaps see, the problem with research like that is surely to some extent it would be at the mercy of the vagaries of the members of staff that are on that particular evening.
Exactly. I think that's why it's an ever-changing landscape. So people can go to the Spinning Mule in Bolton and say, I only got 36 or 37. I think standards are dropping. I think Wetherspoons themselves have got wind of his endeavours and are quite interested in helping him along his way. So, yeah, I think he's becoming a bit of a celeb in the Wetherspoons chip world.
Well, that's another thing that's going to bastardise his results, because if he's become a celebrity, then people he's going to get more chips, isn't he? The whole thing's gone to absolute cock now, isn't it?
Skewed, isn't it? It's skewed before he starts.
There's no way he won't be able to write a research paper that will be considered in any way empirical.
Probably not, but I'd imagine he would get a lot of extra chips.
He will get a lot of extra chips. That's definitely an upside. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's perhaps a little bit of method to his madness, but it made me cackle a little bit because it reminded me of when my old mate Yem and I were trying to kind of have a half in every pub in Maidstone, and there was hundreds of them back in the 80s, weren't there?
Yeah.
And we did manage to knock off most of them, certainly around the town centre. But when you start sort of circling outside of the town centre, still under the guise of being in Maidstone, there was hundreds of them. So yeah, we never quite completed our task. But he went back to normal drinking and I didn't. I carried on in that task in my own little way.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you've probably had significantly more than a half in most pubs in Maidstone, haven't you?
Eventually, yes, exactly.
So are there any pubs still standing in the area that you didn't manage to get to?
No, I don't think that. No, but a majority of them are obviously have been converted into living accommodation now.
Well, I hope you're proud of your heavy drinking.
Not much of a badge of honour. I'm just thought I'd mention it in a passing. I didn't expect to get a barrage of abuse, to be honest. But anyway, well, I'm going to press on.
Yeah, go on, press on.
So anyway, I want to look at why it's so tricky for us to ask for help. And I sort of did a bit of research and a few things that came up. And I wanted to discuss these with you, a few points. One of the points that came up, it came up on more than one occasion. It said that people are hardwired to want to do things on their own and to be independent-minded and not ask for help. And I suppose, generally speaking, I think that would be as a general statement. I think that's probably quite true.
It is true. It's like nobody wants to be told what to do. We all want to feel as if it was our idea. So if you want to get someone to do something, the best way to approach it is to try and approach it from a perspective where they become convinced that it was their idea in the first place. Okay. Like the suggestion of a charity football match in the film version of the popular sitcom Porridge. So yeah, I think that's kind of related, isn't it? So we don't want to feel as if we're being told what to do. And we don't want to feel as if we don't have the right skills or information or capability to do anything. It's. I suppose. I mean, I've got no idea. I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. But I suppose at some point in human evolution, it would have been a survival thing, wouldn't it?
I suppose it would. And so it is something we've learned to do, and it's been passed on. And I want to come back to that point really later on in my notes, but
do you?
I do, yeah. If that's all right, I'm sure you'll be happy with it. But it's the latter part of my notes comes from my research from one of my favourite websites, Psychology Today. It looks at sort of the origins of that particular
lovely
trait. So we'll come back to that. Another point that came up was asking for help often makes people feel uneasy because it requires surrendering control. Yeah, and I thought, I sort of relate to that.
I can understand that. Same thing, isn't it? Really,
it is really. It's an extension of the last point.
For a lot of us, if we feel like we have to cede control, we feel as if we are therefore in some way vulnerable. So
yeah. And I think the next point, which leads on from that quite nicely as well, and it comes up a lot in recovery groups, is that there's a sort of fear of being perceived as needy, and we don't want to be ashamed of our situation or come across as sort of incompetent, so we just don't ask for help. Coupled with the fact that once you ask for help as an addict, you've got this real fear that you're going to then have to do something about it and close down, your old destructive lifestyle.
Okay, so let's separate those two things out.
Yeah,
I think they're different, aren't they? So
yeah, they are.
That one is about once you've asked for help and been given it, now you've got to act.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first one is about the kind of shame of not knowing, showing your vulnerability to the extent that you are seen for who you are. And of course, if you think about that related to people in recovery or people in active addiction, a big part of the reason for your drinking is to stop people seeing who you are.
Yeah.
And so making that transition from trying to protect yourself, keep yourself behind a wall of drugs or alcohol, you're then going from that to dismantling the wall and allowing people to see the pure kind of humanity of you, which is, I am fallible. I'm a human. I don't know how to do everything. And sometimes I might not even be able to do the things that you and I expect me to be able to do. And I think this is kind of related to the conversation we've had in the past about the importance of telling people you're in recovery, or telling people that you've had a problem with substance or you drink or whatever. Because once you lay yourself bare like that and say to people, this is who I am, this is what I struggle with, my guess is that everything that comes after starts to get a little bit easier, because you've learned something very important, which is that just because you're saying you've got a problem with something, that people don't abandon you.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that is so true in the recovery circles. And a thing that crops up a lot leading on from that point is because we often encourage people, if you are feeling a bit vulnerable, feeling like you may have some cravings coming on, or in a bit of a dangerous situation, pick your phone up and ring someone, talk to someone, or get in touch with the WhatsApp group or whatever. Do something about it to take yourself out of the way of the thought process you're going through. And people say, and I remember feeling it myself, that you don't want to, you feel like, if you do ring someone, the person that you're ringing, they've probably got worries of their own, and you feel like that yours aren't significant, and you'll be sort of imposing yourself upon them. And they don't, you in your own mind, you're thinking they don't want to hear this. They got plenty of stuff going on. I don't want to be adding to their worries, and so you convince yourself not to ask for help.
Yeah. So that point is about forgetting your own importance. So when you need help, part of asking for help is realizing that you're important enough to ask for it. But the point you made before that is also vitally important, particularly I think in recovery. And it's a good example, because when you think about why, if you're getting some cravings and you're thinking, crikey, I'm at risk of lapsing here, the thing that would stop you from reaching out and calling someone or texting someone or messaging or whatever would be quite often that you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be seen as weak. You don't want to be seen as a failure. And the consequence of you resisting reaching out when you need to is that you're more likely to do the very thing that you're trying to stop people seeing you as. So you don't reach out, and then you end up going down the off license and buying a bottle, and you've created the very situation that you were trying to avoid by not asking for the help that you needed. True.
But yes, and that's a really good point. And I think also on top of that, you get this fear of rejection also if you ask for help. Which again, we can use that as an excuse in our own heads to not make that request. But I think it's very rare that you get rejected. But to someone that's in either in active addiction or in the early stages of recovery, you just don't want to do it. You'll find an excuse not to ring someone. Once you have rung someone, if you are craving, you are less likely to give into it. So you think, actually, I won't ring them, so then I can have a drink. And so you try and make up all these excuses as to why you shouldn't ring them, and then say, right, no one's going to be worried about me anyway. No one's going to bother about me. I'll crack on with my drinking. So it's quite a tough one to overcome.
That one is about, the thing that we're kind of debating here is what stops people asking for help.
It is.
And what you're saying there, quite rightly, is that sometimes the thing that stops people asking for help is they don't really want it.
Exactly. That's exactly that. And it is, although it's almost like a protocol, we say it's such an important aspect of your recovery, but everyone finds it really tricky.
Mm-hmm.
They find it tricky right from day one. But you find, going back to what we were saying earlier on, once you've done that once you've started to do that, you open that door up, and asking for help then becomes much easier. But it is that first little step.
I should think that people who have got a little bit of a track record of recovery behind them probably enjoy helping other people, and probably strengthens their own recovery, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I often say to people, look, most people that I know in recovery circles feel quite flattered to receive a call from someone saying, I'm having a bit of a wobble. Can we have a chat about things? Because if someone trusts you enough to ring you and to go through their pretty innermost thoughts a lot of times, then you have, you're the recipient really of some quite, I don't know, it just makes you feel quite good inside that they will trust you enough to talk to you. Yeah. So it works both ways. It really does.
So if you're hesitant about asking for help and you don't feel like you're worth it, think about the nice thing you're doing for the person you're asking.
Exactly. Look, I was going back to that thing about, people being hardwired. It sort of expands upon that, and it said, like, on this particular website, it asked us to look back at the roots and the family of origins experience. When you were growing up, what kind of messages did you get when asking for help? So I know you always like to look back at the root cause of some of these issues. Yeah. So hardwiring perhaps is more genetic, but some of the nurture that we get in making these decisions at an early stage, it impacts, doesn't it, going forward?
Massively.
So looking at your childhood, when you first perhaps asked for help, the response you got is going to be quite formative, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. There's a little exercise that I do with people sometimes called the tree of rejection. And it has, as you would imagine, a picture of a tree on it. and above ground in the branches has all of the kind of difficulties that we have, the emotions that we experience. You know, it could include something like difficulty asking for help or feelings of shame or whatever. And then in the roots, it tries to cover as many of the kind of origins of those sorts of things as possible. So it is down to the way that you were treated when you asked for help as a child. You know, how your parents treated you when you didn't know how to do something. You know, were you ridiculed? Were you helped? Were you told they didn't have time to help you? You know, maybe you were bullied. I mean, all of those sorts of experiences of what happened to you when you were vulnerable and how you were treated in a kind of vulnerable state will inform the way that you then feel about showing your vulnerabilities as an adult. Yeah.
It's an important point because, again, it comes up quite often in groups, particularly amongst the guys there, and say, you know, when they were young, a lot of the dads would say to you, same as my dad say to me, you know, man up, you know, don't cry, you man up and crack on with things. And really, it was, I think, a lot of families, I think mine did to a large extent, really, was to put more value on doing it for yourself rather than letting others in. It was a case of, you know, it's a tough world out there. You've got to have get out there, stiff upper lip, crack on. You're going to get some shit thrown at you, but you deal with it, and don't let it upset you.
Yeah, that's I mean, one of the other impacts of being told not to cry. You know, and you still hear that now. People are uncomfortable with other people's strong emotion. But one of the consequences of being told as a child not to cry is that you're actually being told to close down your emotions.
Yeah.
You're being told, don't show your emotion. If you know, either don't feel that emotion, or if you must feel that emotion, don't show anyone. So, of course, the way that translates in adult behavior is that we become either shameful of our strong emotion, or we learn that there is no value in it because we were not shown any value. You know, it was dismissed. Yeah, I can tolerate that and that from you, but what I can't tolerate is emotion. I can't tolerate tears. I can't be dealing with it. And so you then, you know, you get to a place where you don't trust that, and you don't feel as if there's any point in showing it to anyone.
And I think it goes back to that point we've discussed in the past, as it's seen as, at that point, it's seen as a sign of weakness asking for help. Whereas we know in retrospect, and you know, for me, many years later, the wisdom of hindsight and a lot of people's help, I've come to understand it is actually it's a real strength to be able to ask for help, because it was a real battle for me to do it. So when I think about it now, then I showed strength by saying I need help. I'm not very well.
Exactly. You know, I mean, obviously we don't know. It's impossible to know, but it'd be interesting to know what proportion of people with dependency problems get better without help. Because I'll tell you what, it'll be a much smaller percentage than those that get better with help.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've referred to it before, but I know that the lapse ratio, if you stop drinking, if you've got an alcohol issue or a drugs issue, and you stop using or drinking, you know, perhaps you go to detox, and then you go back to your normal lifestyle straight away, where all your old demons are going to come rushing back at you. You don't put any work in, then you've got 93% chance of lapsing. I mean, even for someone that has a gambling issue, they wouldn't like those odds, I'm sure. They would never flutter on that one. And so, if you don't ask for help, you go back on with your own way and have no input whatsoever. 93% chance of lapsing. So that shows, and that it drops down dramatically if you do ask for help and continue to seek help afterwards. But I think that what often happens as well, that rather than seek help, people will often look for ways of working it out themselves. Now, for example, looking for answers on Google, or or looking onto YouTube, for certain videos, or indeed, you know, there's so many of these sort of self-help books that are available and out there. You know, what are your views on that sort of, you know, people getting some answers from those areas?
On the one hand, they're examples of people wanting an easy route.
Yeah.
So if you Google, how can I drink less? which I bet a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You know, inherent in the question is a fear of the reality, which is that the question you need to be asking is, how do I stop drinking?
Yeah.
And I think, as I say, the second reason that people take routes like that is because A, they don't want to show their vulnerability by going and asking someone, so doing something in person. And B, they're looking for something that's going to be a quick fix, a blueprint. Oh, well, if I follow steps 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be okay. And in that sense, whether it be in recovery or any other aspect of, mental or emotional struggle, I think self-help has its place, but it cannot be used as, going back to the roadmap of your father's years. It can't be considered as a map, because by definition, anybody who writes a self-help book is writing about their experience and what they know and the way they see the world. And in that sense, you can't follow someone else's route, because if you do, you'll just end up at their house.
Yeah, true.
So I think self-help has a place, but you need to use it as something kind of directional. And I think in terms of self-help, you're much better off, rather than trying to get that sort of professional help from a book, you're much better off concentrating on the things that really are positive aspects of self-help, like looking after your physical and emotional well-being, getting enough exercise, getting enough sleep, eating properly, considering your own needs, being open to your own emotions, all those things that we've, often spoken about. So that's what I think. Yeah. But I've got a question for you on the subject of self-help.
Okay.
Because, you'd be in a better position to see this than I would. It strikes me that you must have seen many people over the years in the recovery community who, before coming into some sort of organised recovery or going into rehab or whatever, had tried various ways of controlling their own drinking. And you must have seen, that fail on so many occasions.
I think I've seen it fail on virtually every occasion that someone has tried it. Yeah. It's very rare, but yeah, you're exactly right. People will try and say, well, I'm going to try and cut down myself. I can control it. Again, leaving the door back open really to their old habits.
I mean,
although they'd say, I'm going to try hypnosis, for example, or anything other. This quick fix that it's natural to try and look for that. And I think I would have probably gone through the same thought process as well. I think there must be a quick fix to this. It looks like a long, arduous journey ahead of me. There must be some way of shortcutting it. It's only through experience you realise there isn't a shortcut to it. You've got to walk through it. You've got to put the miles in.
Hypnosis is a good example, actually, because that's something that, over the years, people have come to me, and what they really want is someone to make them want to stop drinking. I was thinking about that and thinking about someone that we both know, who much better than I do, but has been into rehab probably 20 times plus.
Yeah. And
I was thinking about times when I've seen him, kind of in between sessions in rehab, where he would talk a good game about what he's going to do in terms of his recovery. But the thing that always strikes me about that is there is no, and I don't just mean about him. I mean, I guess this would be true for anybody. It just feels flimsy.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as if there's any strength in it. And therefore, as soon as it comes under pressure, as you, of course, will do in recovery, there's no tolerance. It's like it will just break. And I think that's the big problem with thinking you can do it yourself, is that you haven't got enough, there's not enough strength in you to manage what you're going through and help you to get to somewhere better at the same time.
Absolutely true. And taking that chap as an example, it's a good illustration of people they can go to a lot of groups, and it looks like they're seeking help. They can learn what to say, that they will then relay that back to their partners, parents, or whatever, and say, these are the tools that I've got, and never put it into practice. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue. So it is, they'll really often, you find people are doing it for the wrong reasons. The recovery, doing it for someone else, and so they can sit down in group and sound like the most knowledgeable person about their recovery, but not actually ever put it into practice.
Yeah, It's the road to ruin.
It is. I mean, would you say that not asking for help is a sort of a trauma response?
Well, it could be, couldn't it? Because going back to what we were talking about before, if your previous experience or childhood experience of asking for help has been traumatic, then it is a trauma response.
Right.
Let's say, for example, as a child, showing that you didn't know something would result in you getting a beating.
Yeah.
Then it's perfectly plausible that you would have a trauma response to the idea of asking for help, because something in both your psychology and your physiology will be screaming to you, don't do that because it's dangerous. So, yeah, I think it can be. I mean, it isn't always, obviously, but it could be.
So many people will get their advice from friends on Facebook. or before that, they get it from some numpty from down the pub who told them this is the right thing. Over the years that's happened. And so people are getting advice from inappropriate sources.
And it illustrates two things. The first thing is the point that you were making there, which is, for goodness sake, be careful where you go to ask. That's the first thing. And the second thing is a great illustration of the point about how much people like to be asked for assistance. When we feel as if we're doing something that is of a service, even if we've got absolutely no idea what we're doing, if we're asked, we'll probably have a go. And that is both. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Those sorts of places are rich in terms of opportunity to get advice. But my goodness, you need to be able to sort your way through the guff, because there is a lot of it.
Yeah, there is. I mean, and looking back on it, I've spoken to so many people over the years, and I always feel grateful that they've rung.
Yeah.
And so as a sort of,
I didn't even see that was so subtle. I didn't even notice it.
I know. There was no acknowledgement of that segue at all. So I was going to go on to unless there's anything else you wanted to add at this point on our discussion points. But
no, I think that's been a rich conversation.
I think so. I think it's been packed. Okay. Well, do you want to go on then and tell me what you would add on to your gratitude list today?
Well, this week I'm grateful for drugs.
Drugs.
Is it okay to say that in this podcast?
Well, I think it needs to be put into context and to perhaps which sort of drugs.
Well, a couple of different drugs actually. Firstly, I've been a bit chesty this week, and you'll know because you've known me for a long time. I'm very grateful for my Ventolin this week, because there've been a few times I've been caught a little bit short of breath.
Okay.
And so I've been very pleased about that. And the other thing that I'm pleased about, if there is any advantage to being old, it is that you get near the front of the line for your COVID booster jab. So
I haven't had mine yet. I think I'm just coming up to the sort of 6 month mark, which I think they've changed the rules on now anyway. But I'm going to get mine done. I think you got your jab slightly after me, didn't you? Which was, if I remember rightly, a cause of great frustration and annoyance to you. Well, I'm senior to you, and I should have been in front of you in the queue. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a respiratory illness.
You're
actually, between us, we're quite sickly, aren't we?
We're very much so. But I think you're a vulnerable person, and you asked for help, didn't you?
Exactly. I'm vulnerable. I'm if my breathing difficulties get too bad, I'll be the sort of person you'll see on a mobility scooter in Week Street in 2 months,
running people down, being nasty to everyone around them. Yeah, I know the sort. Yeah, that'd suit you. That'd suit your personality, but nicely.
Thanks.
But I'm just gonna. It's very simple. This one really. He's William, my grandson. He's on my gratitude list.
Lovely.
I spent the day with him and his my daughter and her partner yesterday, and
Lovely.
it's just a joy. It's just a joy just to be present for that to see him grow up. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, because you didn't think you were going to get that chance, did you?
No, I didn't, and it's just a delight. It really is, and he's such a great little kid. Can be a real handful sometimes, which
like kids can.
Which kids can. It just makes him more. I don't know. It just endears him to me that much.
Yeah, that's because you can give him back at the end of the day.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I can wind him up into a frenzy and then jump in the car.
Well, of course, I know this is kind of an obvious thing to say, but the only reason you are able to enjoy him and feel like that is because you asked for help.
It comes a complete circle. Exactly right. Yeah, I wouldn't have been around if I hadn't asked for help.
No.
And when leading on from that, when I put help into my Spotify search bar, what do you think came up?
The Beatles.
The first one. I mean, in fact, not only them, it was like 100 different versions of that particular track by loads of different artists. Yeah, so help was that came up, but they also come up with the Beatles was with a little help from my friends.
Yeah,
which I thought, so that sort of came up further down the list.
It's funny actually because I can't think of that many songs with help in the title, but there must be loads of them.
There is loads. Help Me Rhonda by the Beach Boys, one of my favourite tracks from back in the back in probably early 70s when I first came across the Beach Boys. And then my older brother's friend was a massive Beach Boys fan, so it often in our house there'd be Beach Boys albums being played when he used to come across there. So Help Me Rhonda, Help Me Make It Through the Night, Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Great track. There's one you would definitely know called Help Me, I'm a Fish by the Danish teen pop duo Creamy. You must know that one.
Oh, it's just a band called Creamy is pretty grim, isn't it?
Oh no, it's awful, isn't it? Yeah, but
Creamy.
It is creamy, and it's a dreadful track. I wouldn't recommend listening to that. It's very poor, very very Euro poppy.
Yeah, I won't be listening to that. Don't worry.
But the one I'm going to put on, which is a sort of nod and a doffing of my cap to our cousins across the pond in America, is an indie pop band from California called Lonely Avenue, and they've got a track called Send Help, and it's just delightful. So I'm putting that onto the
You're trying to curry favour across the pond, don't you?
I am, yeah. It took a bit, yeah, a little bit grovelly, that wasn't it? You saw through that.
I did. If you're trying to get a space on the David Letterman show, I don't think it's
I'm not going the right way about it.
Not really. Okay, well, actually, that does, for some reason, I don't know why, but it does sound like the sort of song I might quite like, so I might go and give that a listen.
Give it a listen. I've added it. I always add it on before we do the recording. So,
all right,
okay, mate. Well, good. I will. We'll crack on, and you asked me to remind you about the farmers market, and that's this Sunday. So I should be across there this Sunday at 9:30 if you want to bring the dogs along.
I might bring the dogs. Yeah, I'm sure our listeners will be delighted to hear about our social plan.
Well, I was sort of thinking you'd probably cut this out.
I don't know if I will actually, because what I was going to tell you was last week I bought some Egremont russets.
Did you?
Yeah, very nice they are too.
Where did you get them from?
I can't remember, the supermarket. I think you can find them, can't you? This time of year you can find them because we're in apple country, aren't we?
We are, but certainly finding russets in the supermarket is tough.
That sounds like a song. Finding russets in the supermarket is tough.
It's a good lyric, that's for sure. Yeah.
I might write a song with that in it. Sounds like a country song, doesn't it?
It does, really. Yeah, I think someone like I don't know who's your favorite. One of your favorite country stars?
Well, I don't know actually. I was just thinking, as
Bonnie
I said,
Raitt.
Bonnie Raitt could be. As I was saying, it was sounded like a country. I think it could also crop up in one of Billy Bragg's songs.
It could do, couldn't it? Yeah. Well, that might be
Finding russets in the supermarket is tough in Boris Johnson's filthy Britain.
Could be, but I don't think it's almost middle class trying to find a certain type of apple. And Billy Bragg certainly very much a working class boy, isn't he?
Do you think so? Is middle class looking for a certain type of apple?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I think it's considered so. Well, I mean, normally, I'm a working class lad. I would have just scrumped them in the past, and that's it. I didn't care what make they were.
Clearly you're not. Clearly you're not working class, are you? Because you go to the farmers market, which is middle class for a start, specifically to buy Egremont russet apples, and in the past, seaweed caviar.
Yeah, well, it wasn't caviar; it was seaweed pate. Yeah, especially as I think last time I went, and and the time before, I buy duck eggs as well. Now, nice was a free-range duck eggs.
You buy duck eggs, and you're accusing me of being flipping middle class for wanting an Egremont russet. Crikey. Well, next, it's only a short step from there to quail's eggs.
It's on its way, mate.
And then I'll have to call the police. All right. I'll see you later.
Okay, mate.
Laters.
Bye.
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 Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.